what's going on with Astralis? Weird times, right? So I did tell you that I was doing a video about Astralis, and it was basically saying the Astralis era was over. That went up incredibly. I'll give credit where it's due. No vitriolic insane assaults, really. Couple of negative comments, couple of people saying Richard Lewis is insanely biased against Astralis, even though the video qualifies them as the greatest players of all time, the greatest core of all time, and a team that we all owe a debt to because they have raised the bar for what can be achieved with a great core and a great IGL and a great coach all working in tandem, and brought back a legendary brand from, well, no, I won't call it legendary, but an old school brand back from days gone by. Which is always a nice nod, because the one thing you can't synthesize is credibility and history. You were either there or you're not. So they've had a couple of bad runs, haven't they, at tournaments? Their finishes haven't really been all that strong. They've been having a bad time of it, and I think people have noticed that not only are they having a bad time of it, they're losing in a way that they wouldn't typically lose in. Most notably, the other day, they lost to Furia, who absolutely spanked them 16-2 on Train, of all things. Definitely not a way you would expect Astralis to lose. The day before that, they were manhandled by Gambit, who are the #1 team in the world. There's just no getting around that anymore. But then think back about how they lost to Spirit, where they were nearly 16-0'd. They were 16-1'd on Dust 2, where if Spirit had took the pistol round, that would have been it. And they kind of laughed it off and said, oh, well, we've got Virtus Pro that tomorrow. No, it's no big deal how you lose. And they played a pretty close series, but Virtus Pro are better than them now as well. And so you have to wonder what's going on with Astralis, because in particular Glaive as well has really struggled, hasn't he? He's not been playing particularly well. I'm not sure what's going on, but there's just a weird air around them. And I've been around the game a long time, and when you see teams kind of laughing off defeats like this and losing in ways that they wouldn't have done just 6 months prior, it usually does mean that it's the beginning of the end. Now, not everyone agrees with that take. I will point out that MSL, he tweeted something out. I'm just going to bring that up on screen for you. And MSL, I don't know if he's, obviously he's an old friend and someone that I know and someone I respect, obviously, for his achievements in the game and just a person I like outside of the game. But I do wonder sometimes if the pandemic and lockdown might have sent him crazy as well. Because just a month or two ago, he tweeted saying that he thought Vertigo was the most tactical map in the map pool, which, that's pretty mental. Anyway, he tweeted, I think no one has realized we're still playing online. When there was LAN, so many crazy results happened online that would never happen at LAN. I think everyone will get a shock when we go to LAN, and of course, Astralis shouldn't change anything. They are the best performing LAN team. Online gives teams that play with less structure and more YOLO style a huge advantage, because these players a lot of the time will not take the same risk on LAN, or it won't pay off. Same goes for IGLs. There is such a huge difference on calling in a stadium and in your bedroom. So this isn't entirely false. Many people who follow my work know that I don't really put a lot of stock in online. No one who came from competitive Counterstrike source would. We all know there were teams that just had onliners, guys who never even made it to LAN, teams that would absolutely bang your head off online, and then the one time they did turn up to LAN, they would go out in fucking groups at a fucking I-series, losing to shitters that no one had ever heard of and no one remembers. History and source is replete with those examples. We all know. Me and Henry have joked about it before, because I think Henry gave a guy a break who was a notorious onliner, took him to one LAN, and turned out, yeah, he was a fucking onliner. Who knew? And yeah, he performed horribly, and the team absolutely got wrecked. It can happen to the best of us. So when you come from that world, obviously you don't put any stock in online results. And especially, 128 team open bracket qualifiers with no anti-cheat. Oh, wow, look at all these crazy results. They're not crazy. They're far from crazy. It always blows my mind when you see, like, Fortnite saying, God, look at all this cheating in an open bracket qualifier with no anti-cheat. Like, yes. Esports. Come on in. People will do that. Yes. That's why you need to have measures. Yeah. So he's absolutely right. But where he's wrong is that, first of all, we've been online for a year now. And so this has become the norm. And the teams that have supplanted and replaced and overtook Astralis, they are not the teams that are playing YOLO style, are they? Virtus Pro, not playing YOLO style. They play tactical, very, very tactical. And yes, they have a lot of reliance on your Kindar right now. And Vax sucks. Love that guy. But, they play a tactical style. Gambit, one of the most tactical teams in World Counterstrike, the #1 team in World Counterstrike. They balance brilliant individual performance with incredible tactical complexity. And Heroic, who won today, just recorded a video about them before I came in, on stream, wearing a Rasputin t-shirt as a little nod to all the Russians. They play amazing tactical Counter-Strike as well. So the teams that are going up in the rankings aren't playing YOLO Counter-Strike. They're playing tactical Counter-Strike, and they're just being better right now in the circumstances we are. Now, some of those teams haven't gone to a LAN together. The issues that come up at LAN aren't just on the server. To even the way we do LANs now, with one best of 3 a day, LANs are still attritional. You got to get up. You're in a different time zone. You might be jet lagged. You got to have your breakfast. You got to have some practice. You got to play a game. You play the game. You got to have a debrief. You got to do this. You got to do your media commitments. And then you go back to an unfamiliar bed in a hotel, usually 4 or 5 star these days. And then you have to try and get to sleep in a perhaps an unfamiliar time zone. And then you got to get up and you got to do it again. And also, just in general, spending a lot of time in person with your teammates. Sometimes there can be friction, stuff that spills over. Sometimes you might be tempted. You might want to go out and sightsee. And, you might want your girlfriend there. And the team might say no. And there's a million little things that can happen to a team at a LAN that no one ever talks about. And in the same way that in combat sports, you never really go into a fight 100%. You kind of never really have a LAN where everything's perfect either. So, do I believe Astralis will be better at LAN? Here's what I would say. I believe Astralis have the experience to just LAN is just another day at the office for them. Because, of course, they actually did one of the most intense schedules I've ever seen at the end of 2019, didn't they? Which caused all of the problems that we ended up writing about. So, I don't agree with this take, and don't think that's what's happening in World Counter-Strike, and I don't think this is why Astralis are falling down the rankings. I think they're just at the end of the line. They're at the end of their tether. Now, there was a strange thing that happened on Twitter, because while they were losing, Nicola Nyholm, and let's go big head and show him the respect he deserves. My proudest achievement is ruining that guy's reputation. Well, I'd say ruining it. He did that by making everybody know who he was, thus by extension, making him a joke in the community. So let's be clear. I won't put words in my mouth. I retract that statement. He did it. I made everybody know who he is, what he does. Calling him Nicola Lyhome. Oh, no. He did make a third video. Oh, God. How can you sell your community this short by just making content about me? Right. I'll get into that in a second, because obviously that's just a live reaction now. But anyway, so Nicola Nyholm did a tweet in the middle of a game, and it just shows to me that this guy's like not all like I don't know what he's doing here. I don't know what the angle is. This is like really weird. It might be the first time. It might be the first time he's actually done anything honest, because he did a tweet, and this was, I think, just before. This was during the game, I think, based on the time of it. Hashtag free Bubsky, right? So, and Bubsky, for those who don't remember, is still on the Astralis roster, isn't he? And yet Astralis has been playing bad. We haven't seen him in the team. We haven't seen him on the roster and get a fair shake. Duncan did a video about it recently where it was something like he'd played 16 maps or something since joining Astralis, which is insane, considering they were meant to be doing this big 10-man roster and rotate people in and out and train them up on maps. So it has certainly been a terrible career move for him. Just as a rule of thumb, if you ever find yourself a pro in any esports, accepting being on the subs bench is when you're good enough to start, never a good move. Coming into a rotational setup, never a good move. That should be for young talent who are just grateful to get a salary and get an opportunity to play some top-tier Counterstrike from time to time. In this sense, Na'Vi are doing a better job with how they're bringing in Bit over there with their 6-man roster. But, of course, Vitality were the masters of it and showed you exactly how it was to be done. All academic now, because Valve don't want their game to evolve, evidently. So, want to keep it 5-man, set team, no coaches, IGLs only, etc. So, he said free Bubsky. And what I thought was interesting was somebody said, like, you know, are you joking? Because obviously, one thing you have to do these days, if you're a top team, a top esports org, if the results aren't going well, you have to kind of meme on yourself. Because as we all know, the internet is a cauldron of hate. I'm sure with Philip's third video lovingly put out there, where no doubt he's going to say all these things about me because he's definitely not upset about a throwaway line in a 3-hour podcast. I'm sure I'm going to find that out again for another 24 hours as he instructs his fans to definitely not harass me. But Nicola Nyholm cleared it up, and he said, no joke, I don't understand why he isn't playing. And, you know, look, I think a lot of us feel this way. Bubsky, probably for me, you know, it's very hard to say who he replaces because Zipnix hasn't been playing brilliantly, but Zipnix plays a very specific role. Glaive had a terrible performance against Gambit, but Glaive's the IGL. And then the next one on the chopping block, you have to say, is probably Dupree, who was average in the series they got knocked out in, but has been really good. Like, he's been really rejuvenated recently, if you've been watching Astralis. So it's kind of like you should just never have brought this player in the first place. But he is there, and he should be playing, and maybe you need to work on your system and find a way to get in. I don't know. But what's interesting is you're saying this as your team are getting knocked out of a tournament, and the optics of this are weird and terrible. Even though I never thought I would say this on the stream, I kind of agree with Nicola Nyholm. I guess hell has frozen over. So This tweet came up after they were knocked out in that fashion by Furia. Now, I know Lucas follows my work, and I think this is a reference to the video I made, because the video I made was called The End of Astralis. And you can see Glaive tweeted this out and said, hang on, I've just had a moment. I've just had an epiphany. I've just realized I've turned into Hunter Grooms. I'm reading tweets. I suppose it's not the same, because I can actually offer some form of insight into what's happening here by virtue of having expertise. But that does make it different, doesn't it? It does make it different. So, Lucas Rosander, a.k.a. Glaive, said, the end is always a new beginning. The end is all... I see that name, Gopco. I'm not reading that on stream. The end is always a new beginning. So I thought this was a reference to the title of my video. In other words, saying defiantly, Astralis, it's not the end. It's all, you know, we've heard this before. This is how I interpret it. We've heard this before. We just go back to the drawing board and we'll come back better. And then when you combine it with MSL saying they're a great LAN team, you have to wonder if maybe the sentiment among the players is, you know, fuck all people talking down to us during this online stuff. Well, as soon as we get to LAN, we're going to pop off. And they have done it before. And we got the RMRs round the corner. Problem with that is RMRs are going to be online. That's the regional major ranking events. Remember, you've got to get your rank to go to the majors and whatnot. I think they've done a hard reset on those, so that's going to be interesting. So there's a lot going on in online. I think online Counterstrike, we just have to accept it. It is what it is, and we're going to get back to LAN at the end of the year, and nobody should be reading too much into it, and to be dismissive of the online era after a year when people should have adapted, a little bit silly. But just to talk about this and whether or not, you know, Astralis are gonna, you know, break apart if that tweet doesn't mean what I think it means, which is just, it's always the end for Astralis, lol. Like, everyone always speaks down to us about us. I think, you know, there could be a chance, and I've said this for a while, there could be a chance this roster doesn't make it to the major. I think their contract's up for renewal this year. I don't know the exact month, but the word on the street is their contracts are up for renewal. We also know that a couple of players from that roster were out there saying they'd be willing to move, and they wanted to see what kind of salaries they could get in free agency. It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible that those players are out. And based on Glaive's poor personal performance and the fact that he's going to be a father soon, I mean, it's possible maybe Glaive wants to be the guy to make way. You know, I mean, Glaive's done it all. He's proven himself to be one of the greatest in-game leaders of all time. He's proven himself to be one of the greatest in-game leaders in any competitive esport. And wow, this sounds crazy already. Definitely doesn't want to harass you, Jace. We'd hate that to happen. So anyway, yeah. I think there's a chance maybe Glaive's one of the ones to go. I mean, that was already, remember, the rumor back when he went and had some time off. So, and, you know, he might want to play on a team that's a little bit less demanding, let's say, of his time, because, you know, Astralis are very regimented. You know, even now, you know, training sessions, turning in, you know, it is very much a real job over there, which is great. It should be if it's a professional sport, but, you know, equally, and I'll say this, esports, sports, yeah, you know, your kid's your kid, and your missus is your missus. And you should be there all through the pregnancy, and you should be there at the birth, and you should take paternity leave and treasure those first moments with your child. That takes precedent over anything we're doing. And so, you know, I think that's a distinct possibility. I'll also add as well, I'm not the only one to have made this observation. It's always good when other people observe the same things that I do. Although no doubt I am usually the one that's targeted for observing them. Semler actually pointed out that, you know, this is kind of a weird thing, you know, because look, Semler said, there must be some fucked up weird shit going on right now between the players and the org in Astralis for the org owner to tweet this after his team lost. And so it makes me wonder if, and this is a plausible scenario as well, I would say, makes me wonder if Nicola Nyholm, team owner, wants Bubsky in, squad of 5 say, absolutely not, we want to keep playing as a 5, we think that's better. And then you end up at an impasse because even if you're the team owner, one thing you'll never have full dominion over is the roster. It's just that simple. You're never going to get that because if a player doesn't want to play with another player, they just say, I won't play. And if they're all in lockstep and they all say, this is the team we want to play with, you've got a real problem on your hands. You know, there's no fixing that necessarily. So I don't know, man. That Astralis stuff looks kind of messed up to me. I think there's something going on over there. Which there's more to that than meets the eye like a fucking transformer, you know? And I don't know. Maybe they don't even get to Alana's 5. Yeah, I've seen the headlines about how Zonic picks the team, which is another problem. I mean, if that's true, you can't put that fucking genie back in the bottle at that point, once you've acquiesced and given up that power. But I always suspected that wasn't true. I don't think many orgs actually allow the coach. I think Vitality is one of the few ones where Xtaz really has that power and can say, no, fuck off, you're not playing. That's like one of the few where I know that is 100% true.